Hi, this is Kasian, and it's time for a weekly conference call at VectorspaceAI. We'll start with what's happening around the world. Investor Bill Wang set off a storm in the stock market last week when his firm, Archegos Capital Management, and its banks began liquidating huge positions in blue-chip companies, according to people familiar with the transactions. The sales sent individual stocks swooning, and it started in China, and the contagion spread to most blue-chip companies around the world. Banks were also involved. This left at least 3 banks with major damage. They had to unwind trades to the tune, Archegos had to unwind trades to the tune of 10 billion, or suffer losses at 10 billion, while other banks lost billions. So we're continuing to monitor this, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. The Suez Canal has been unblocked, and that's good news, with the exception of certain supply chains having ripple effects. Coinbase is IPOing April 14th. That's good news for the entire crypto markets and traditional financial markets. Under themes and events, back to Archegos. Questions of how this event might cause systemic risk is what is on everyone's mind. People remember long-term capital management in 1998, and then of course that caused a lot of turmoil across the Pacific Rim and with the Russian ruble. And then of course in 2008 you had Bear Stearns fall, and we also saw the result of systemic risk that can roil global markets. And when that happens, global markets they will go into a downturn. When that happens, that actually creates events for companies like ours in terms of thematic baskets on the short side. Keep in mind that an event can be a drop or an increase in the value of a company. So if a stock drops, for example, by 15%, you might want to create a thematic basket related to similar stocks and short those. For example, Emergent Biosolutions. This is a biotech that is pretty close to failing clinical trials. You can read the news on that one. A basket related to Emergent Biosolutions would be a short basket. On the industry side, there's the Healthcare NLP Summit happening April 6th through the 7th. The Broad Institute launches a $150 million Schmidt Center for Research in Machine Learning and Biology. So machine learning applied to biology. And of course, as we know, that means natural language understanding. Virgin Galactic and SpaceX are offering space tourism. So the space race now is made up of several different components. And this includes lunar bases, it includes what's happening right now on Mars, and of course space tourism here. And all of that requires space biosciences. We'll talk more about that in a bit. On the corp side, we have made a few new hires. We won't go over all of them. We will notify teams within the company in terms of who has joined what group and when and where. As our company grows, we've got several groups that are going to be talking with one another a bit more and essentially merging with one another as we scale our organization. On the legal side, we are retaining SRZ, that's our law firm, Schulte, Roth, and Zabel. This law firm will help us navigate a group of hedge funds that we're talking with. And of course that relates to corporate strategy. Under the engineering product QA and ops side, we've got a new head of AR and XR. AR, augmented reality. XR, extended reality. And we'll be building data engineering pipelines so that they, at the end of the data engineering pipeline, would be a visualization component so that they enable data interpretation, better data interpretation. When you look at data science and data engineering, at the very end, the purpose is to produce a new hypothesis or better interpret your data so that you can possibly make a discovery, or generate alpha. So it's very important to have visualization components. They enable a scientist or a researcher or a fund manager or a trader to be able to see how things connect outside of just looking at a raw data set. And when you look at visualization done today, it's largely done in 2D, and AR will enable us to do it in 3D. And that will initially apply to space biosciences. We'll have an initial focus on space biosciences. We're also going to be working with Azure Space and onboarding there, so engineering is preparing for that. We are also preparing to interface with Databricks. This is a company that is in our space, upstream from us, and we are looking at a partnership with them, facilitated through Race Capital, possibly. We have a new site design in progress, and we'll be announcing that soon. We'll get a date in terms of a release date, and update the public. We're also working on a new biosciences data set, and this data set will be showcased to all groups associated to space biosciences. And we are continuing our work with CERN, and that includes advancing our data sources, our data acquisition methods in terms of crawling particle physics papers and looking at information repositories that include papers related to particle physics, in particular theoretical particle physics. When we worked with CERN initially, we had access to a very limited number of papers, so we had to put things on hold just for a bit while we paid attention to a few other engineering efforts. And now we are back with a dedicated group that's going to be moving CERN forward in terms of natural language processing and natural language understanding applied to particle relationships. So typically, CERN establishes relationships between particles, and they would like to establish new relationships or strengthen relationships that already exist based on natural language processing and natural language understanding, which are the correlation matrix data sets. Under customers, partners, and collaborators, we are oversubscribed. We mentioned this last week, and this continues. We've got Race Capital that we are in dialogue with related to Databricks. We'll update the public on that. That should be pretty interesting. We are still waiting to hear from S&P. S&P has been quiet, and we respect that. We are also talking with Alliance Block, and we'll be doing a deal with them. All other partners are in progress, and some of these include Lake Partners. This is a hedge fund. There's a list of hedge funds here, 7 of them. I'll go down the list in terms of when we'll be meeting with them. But Lake Partners, we'll be meeting with them on April 7th. Hermes Capital on April 7th. And Millennium Management on April 8th. We'll be meeting with our old friends at WorldQuant April 8th as well. WorldQuant went under a restructuring. They had a restructuring while we were talking with them a while back. They did sign a trial agreement with us. They weren't prepared with the data engineering pipeline to intercept our data sets, integrate them. So it seems like they might be now because they are interested in talking with us. And then we've got Schoenfeld. They would like to talk to us for a second time, and that's happening on April 9th. And we have State Street Global Advisors on April 13th. And then we've got Morgan Stanley on April 19th. It's likely that we'll have to choose a limited number of hedge funds to work with initially. In any case, each hedge fund is required to hold a position in VXV in order to engage in a trial. Under the exchanges section, we are going to be opening dialogues with exchanges after PR from our partners here. And we've mentioned this before, and we are expecting our first PR very soon. Under IR, PR, and Marcom, it's steady as she goes. But let me also mention that there is a form of PR and Marcom related to what we're doing with these 7 hedge funds: Lake Partners, Hermes Capital, Millennium Management, WorldCont, Schonfeld, State Street, Morgan Stanley. As we talk to them, they're going to get to know what we do. This will be the first time that we talk with hedge funds where we are talking about VXV, our cryptocurrency, related to what it does in terms of data provenance and providing access to datasets. And of course, holding VXV so they can engage in trials. Under strategy, back to that new dataset we're building, we are going to be including data from a CRISPR dataset. So that should be interesting. The reason it should be interesting is because eventually CRISPR, anything coming from CRISPR, of course, will be added to Space Biosciences and will enable greater insights, any kind of data that we can get from any CRISPR experiments. So we'll be gathering data sources, papers, new research that are coming from studies related to CRISPR. And space tourism. We've mentioned this above, and space tourism relates to protecting the human body. If you're putting people in space, you need to protect their bodies. And this doesn't just happen with shielding. It has to happen with precision and personalized medicine. Because what happens is that gamma rays come and knock against your DNA and break both strands. It's called a double strand break. Sometimes when you experience gamma rays in space or UV rays here on Earth, they'll hit a single electron will hit an A, T, C, or G and create what's called a SNP, or a single nucleotide polymorphism. That's when an A gets flipped to a T or a G gets flipped to a C. And that causes an error in the way that your DNA is read, and then a malformed protein can occur, resulting in cancer. So DNA repair can happen in many different forms, and we'll be working with groups that are doing current research, the latest research in DNA repair, protecting human DNA and repairing human DNA for space. And this includes work that we have done in the past at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, but primarily it includes work that Mina Bissell has done with NASA. In particular, she wrote a report titled Modeling Human Risk, Cell and Molecular Biology in Context. She and I had a good talk today, and it was related to our work in space biosciences and how we're going to advance this. And what was mentioned was that we do have collaborators right now at Berkeley Lab, and these are scientists that study the effects of gamma radiation. These are also collaborators of Mina, and they've been working together for quite some time, collaborating. And NASA has also been working with Mina in terms of the report that she did. And we'll send that report out to the public so that you can take a look at it. As we talked about the effects of space on the human body. And Mina mentioned that she had studied a few things that had happened to Scott Kelly, and two of those things actually did not relate to repairing or protecting DNA. They related to the fact that they related to the heart. They related to the lungs. They related to the brain, and the fact that our organs, they get smaller in space. And that's a problem. Space affects your tissues. Your heart needs gravity to pump blood, for example. Your muscles need to be moved. Atrophy is a problem, common problem in space, but it can be solved with exercise, partially. So there are a wide variety of problems that Space Biosciences looks to solve so that people can be put safely in space. Blake Simmons is the Biosciences Director at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, and we'll be interfacing with him to move this effort forward as well. Some of this relates to the research of dormancy. So if you might want to look that up, you'll find that it relates to reversion of malignant cancer. Some of Mina's current work relates to exosomes, based on her two primary contributors, or her two primary collaborators, and integrins binding to the ECM, of course, which tell the genome what to do. We'll be attending a symposium in Napa. This symposium will be based on the microenvironment regulating DNA and Mina's work done there. And this will happen at some point when things open up just a bit more related to the pandemic. That's all we have for this week. Thanks for joining. We'll see you online.